Jesus would have taken his disciples, because it's the only vantage point, on the hill. And they gather together, and he asks them a question. He says to them, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And they said, "Well, some say you're John the Baptist, come back from the dead. Some say you're Elijah. Some say you're the prophet. Some say..." And then Jesus said, "But who do you say that I am?" Stop right there. See this location? Each of these temples, now some of them have outdoor worship. Let's look, you see obviously the two big stone temples. Look in between. You see that arch or that niche that's cut into the rock? You see those people and statues gather around on that platform? That was an area of worship. And you would put your God in that niche. Do you see the hillside? There's all these other little carvings, these niches. You would put your God there and you'd go through your worship of your pagan or foreign statue, of your foreign god. And the temples are numerous. There's one to the far right. Do you see what looks like a fountain? That is the temple of the nymphs. You know nymphomania? A nymphomaniac is a sex addict. That's where the pornographers of the day, that's where they would go. You would hire a temple prostitute in honor of the god or goddesses, and you would go through those things that I can't talk about now, all under the guise of religious worship. How convenient is that? Well, listen, people today are still going to the altar of their computer regarding that kind of stuff. Okay, and so there's various things going on. This is a mall of pagan worship. It is an agora of paganism. But do you see the large, big hole behind the one temple there? Okay, keep that picture in your mind now. Next slide, you guys. The niche that was between the two temples, I'm standing inside that niche. The church is gathered around. Do you look to the far right where that one gentleman is standing? Do you see the niche above his head? Some of those images that we saw in the rendering earlier. Next slide. Check this out. Okay, to the far, or to, I should say, the center of the screen. That's that big, large area. Why is that important? That's where the headwaters of the Jordan River come out. Why is that important? Next slide. Because what would happen in worship, you would take your child, your firstborn baby, or an animal, if you didn't have a baby, and you would go through your worship, and you would cast the life of that animal or that child into that rocky, craggy pit where the water is gushing out. And if blood came out, then the gods rejected your sacrifice. You were in big trouble. If no blood came out, and in the turbulence of the water, you say, well, that doesn't look turbulent now. That's because about 6-7 feet below that spot, the Jordan River is gushing out of the ground beneath. The geology has changed since. And so you would throw your sacrifice in there, in your act of worship. Next slide, or is that it? I don't remember. That's it. All in pagan worship. Why is that important? Because during the time of Christ, that was the center. That was the place of bizarre, New Age, radical thinking, which was mating with ancient Babylonianism. The worship of the 360 gods of the ancient Babylonian world. They're all represented there. Why is it important? Because Jesus said, "Who do you say that I am?" Because when you went to that worship moment, you would say, "Great is Diana of the Ephesians." And you would go through your act of worshiping Diana. If it was Zeus, you would proclaim Zeus as God. Hey, by the way, they had another saying. You guys all know it. It's Caesar is Lord. Remember that? You either declare that Jesus was Lord, and if you did, you put yourself right immediately at odds with Caesar. Emperor worship. So you would state the name of your God and you would worship. Now do you see why Jesus on the hill say, "Who do you guys say that I am?" And Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus said, "Flesh and blood has not revealed that unto you, Peter, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto you, Petros," pebble. Peter's name means pebble. Little piece of rock. "Upon this Petra, I will build my church." Petra is a massive rock. You say, well, wait a minute. Jesus, there never was a church built on that site. Hang on. He goes on to say, Upon this rock, Pebbles, I will build my church, and the gates of what? Hell shall not prevail against it. The Jews called that location, that pit, that hole, the gate of hell. And the associated areas of worship, the gates of hell. So Jesus used the modern statement of the day to say, when I build my church upon the fact that I am the Christ, the Son of the living God, I'm going to tell you something right now. The very gates of hell will not prevail against my church. That had to give them goosebumps and cause them to maybe jump up and down. Ladies and gentlemen, that truth of Jesus is still true today and it will forever be true. Have churches started and failed? Yes. Those that were not of God, those that got their eyes off of God? Yes. Local churches start and fail everywhere around the world. But the church of Christ, God, will never fail in the earth. There will always be what we would say the remnant. Yes? There will always be His people. There always have been, there always will be. So if an earthquake were to, I know we wouldn't have an earthquake, would we? If an earthquake knocked this building down, it has nothing to do with, oh, look, the gates of hell prevailed against the church. That's not what it means. The church is gathered together based upon the fact that Jesus Christ is the Lord, and the gates of hell cannot defeat that.